All right, y'all, welcome back to the podcast. So, at the last topic, we discussed stress and anxiety and procrastination, and how procrastination is a matter of us trying to regain control, and how it's basically telling you that you have too many things in your life that you're not in control of. So, your last call to action was to write a list of all the things that are causing you stress and anxiety, and then put a check by the ones that you can control and things you can change, and you put an X by the things you cannot change. So today I want to discuss what we call resiliency. So resiliency or resilience, looked up the dictionary definition, which is the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. It also shows the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape. So to be elastic or to be tough. Resilience is something that is the next tool that you can use to help manage or deal with your stress and anxiety. Reason why is, as we go through life and we go through things that are difficult, when we're able to withstand the pressures of these difficulties and push through them and come out better on the other side, we're becoming more resilient. So every time you go through a difficulty and you grow from it, you're becoming more resilient. I'll give you a clear example. During COVID, me being in the military, we go through a lot of different things that a lot of folks don't understand or go through. And COVID brought up this perfect example. So during COVID, the military trying to figure out how can we protect our members from getting COVID, spreading it, you know, wild throughout the ship, because I was on the ship. So we had 130 people on the ship, and they're like, how can we prevent 130 people from getting it? Because it actually happened to one of our other ships. One person had it. It spread through the entire boat, and they weren't even allowed to go back home. They had to anchor and just kind of let the sickness just burn through everybody. Um, and so they're trying to figure out how to prevent things like that. So the military is known for going above and beyond to come up with solutions and create flexible solutions. But sometimes things become more arduous and more difficult. And the one thing when it comes to the military that a lot of folks don't understand is, on a macro, like a humongous level, on the 30,000 foot level, what matters to the military is completing the mission. And so they tell us that mission comes first. Um, the equipment or our materials come second, and people come last, which is pretty crazy. But as a leader, I always like to say the opposite, that, okay, yeah, people come first and the mission comes second and materials are last. That's my style of leadership, because without people, you don't have anybody to do the mission. And so without people, the mission won't happen. And last, if it comes to down to the choice of saving some equipment or saving a person's life, I'm going to save the person's life, because the equipment can be replaced, whereas a person cannot. And so, continuing on with the story, they created a policy that if were vaccinated, not vaccinated, it didn't matter. If you were on a ship, you had to quarantine for 21 days prior to our departure on that deployment. Now, the military's definition of quarantine was not even a true quarantine. It was an isolation. They wanted you to not even be with your family. So they wanted everybody to be on the ship so they can control us. And people started complaining. big time all around throughout the whole entire service. So they came up with an incentive. Incentive was if you get um, vaccinated, then you don't have to do a 21-day isolation. You can do 5-day isolation at home with your family. But the other caveat is your family has to be vaccinated. Now, if your family wasn't vaccinated, but you were vaccinated, then they were going to trust you, um, and trust that you are not going to interact with your family, which we all know that's not going to happen when you're about to leave them and not see them for 6 months. So, just when you thought things could be worse, they got worse. Next thing you know, I get promoted. I advance from E7, which is a chief in the Navy and the Coast Guard, which I'm in the Coast Guard. And I got advanced to E8, which is senior chief. And they were like, hey, congratulations. And they were telling me this on the 5th of July. Sorry, 3rd of July. And they started off with the sentence like, hey, want to once again congratulate you. Because it had already been a month since my advancement, I was like, oh no, man. There's a but. It's coming. And sure enough, they were like, hey, congratulations. I know it's not a good time. We know you just had hernia surgery and you just got finished recovering, but now you're fit for full duty. You missed this last deployment, so we want to send you on a deployment with another ship. This ship, I had to meet them in Kodiak, Alaska. So I fly to Kodiak, Alaska, and of course they have the was it the N19 or whatever it's called, the mask with the real filter on it. N91 mask is what it is. N91 mask, and I had to use that, and I had to wear gloves when I was on the plane, and it was just crazy, man. Torture, being just suffocating. So then I get to Kodiak, and they decide, okay, you're gonna get in the barracks. Now I got lucky. I'll be honest on this one. They told me on July 3rd that I was leaving the next day for July 4th to get there by July 5th because it takes a day to get to Alaska from Hawaii, which is where I was stationed at. Yeah, I kind of decided I wasn't going to do that because I wanted to spend 4th of July with my family. So I intentionally delayed my departure by a day. And I found out that I would still make the quarantine time in order to be ready for the deployment. Thank God I did, because when I got there, come to find out, the people that got there on time, they all got put in the same room together. So imagine 12 people in this big room all together, sharing showers, everything. I was like, nah, bro. So I got lucky. I got there a day later. I ended up by myself, which sucked at first, but then I realized how much a blessing it was. So I was in that room, literally a room for, it was supposed to be 10 days. And the local base there says after 10 days you can get outside and get some air. Well, the ships decided they want to still be difficult. So they decided, no, you have to stay in your room the whole entire time, 21 days. So then 21st day came, and we're supposed to get ready to go on the ship, and the ship gets delayed. Um, so imagine being in a room that's about the size of, I'll say, like a very small bedroom. And that's all I had. So thank God I brought my PlayStation. I was able to talk to people to get me a TV. I did a lot of push ups, a lot of sit ups, a lot of talking with my family, a lot of Bible reading, things like that. And I really grew mentally and came to understand what I could withstand. So you're thinking all this is probably terrible. Oh no, it got even worse. Then 5 months later, I go up on another um, deployment where I have to meet my ship in Kodiak because I was delayed for some reason. I was at some kind of school or something. Man, I end up getting up there in Kodiak and up in a hotel room for 10 days. And this was during the holidays. So, we had shipped out 2 days before Thanksgiving. So I missed Thanksgiving. And, I'm thinking, like, all right, at least I'll get to spend Christmas with folks on the boat. They're close, like family. They're going to make some really good meals for us and make things good for us. Nope. Well, one of the guys that I met when I got there, and all we did was like hugged it out, like, "What's up, bro?" And I ended up getting COVID from that guy. And the funny thing is, up until this point, this was 2021. I had gone a whole 2 years without getting COVID just by washing my hands and just staying away from people, really. I would go hang out with my friends, even though we weren't really supposed to, but I did. And it showed that, as long as you were being person responsible, things were going to be fine. So lo and behold, I'm getting ready to get in a taxi to get a ride to my hotel, and they're like, "Oh no, man, we want you to only get picked up by military people because military people are going to be more responsible." Yeah, well, that's how I ended up getting COVID. Pardon me. I ended up getting COVID the day I was supposed to leave. So guess what? The ship freaking leaves me, and they're going to come back for me in 21 days after that. So I end up being stuck in that room again for another 21 days. So for a total of 31 days, I end up in a room. I end up in that room through Christmas Eve, Christmas, and New Year's. And let me tell you, you find out what you're really made of. I had a lot of trauma and things I dealt with in my life growing up. Because of this isolation, I was able to have time to deal with that. I was able to have time to deal with forgiving others that I hadn't had time to forget or forgive, or I never made time to. I was able to catch up with family, catch up with friends, do a lot of workouts. I played a lot of video games, read a couple books, made some websites, um, made some good money on the stock market. And after that, once I got on the boat and I saw how stressful things were going to be, man, I was like, dude, I'll take that 31-day isolation period all over again rather than what I was going to have to deal with in the future. And so each time, as I've kind of explained, each time that I dealt with something more and more difficult, it prepared me to deal with the next thing that came up that was more difficult. And I just became more mentally strong, more emotionally strong. And I found out that I can go through hell and back and still be okay. And I made the best out of these terrible outcomes. And so that's what resilience being about. And the reason why it lessens your stress is because while a lot of other people were stressed out and upset and furious, which I get, because I was there before in the past, I learned that this is one of those things, like I told y'all before, that I could not control. Therefore, there's no point in me fretting or complaining about it, but to just make the best out of the situation. And by doing that, I benefited myself, and I end up making that isolation time, which could have been a terrible time, into a prosperous, fruitful time. And so I encourage y'all that as you go through life and you deal with difficult circumstances, worry about the things you can control, forget about the things that you cannot control, focus on the ones you can control, and that'll give you a sense of control and power or choice within your life, which will lower your stress. And that's what being resilient is all about. I truly believe if the world and our society was more resilient, we'd have less problems, because majority of the problems that we deal with are stress and anxiety. And anxiety comes in many ways. It comes out as anger, etc., lack of patience, etc. If you look at all this stuff on social media, people always acting a fool about small petty things. It's because they're not resilient. They don't know how to deal with difficult situations. And so when you are not resilient, you also typically lack maturity. And so maturity is the next thing we'll talk about on the next episode. But until then, see you guys next time, and God bless. Feel free to hit me up on this podcast. You can go on there and submit questions. If you're looking on Spotify, or if you want on Apple, feel free to send a comment and send me any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer those, or I could even talk about different things that you want for me to talk about. I'll make sure I put my contact information in the description of the podcast. All right, God bless.